All right, here we're going to talk about how to set up a rough draft layout of a scooters. Now, we've already set up the property line on this in a separate video. This one had to be set up using very little information, basically just an aerial uh, image that we clipped in here off of Google Maps. And the client had given us some information about what they thought the property size was, so we used that information to draw our property line. So once you've got to this point, no matter how you went about getting here, whether or not you had a PDF to go with or a survey, I like to get it to this point where we've got clearly defined property lines. We've got, a rough idea of where our surrounding curb lines are that we might be attaching to, that sort of thing. Then we're ready to start our layout. Now, in the information that was given to us, they did say that we were going to get our access from 14th Street. So we know from that we're not going to get a curb cut up here like these guys did right here. So there's not going to be any curb cuts along here. Now down here, it looks like there's existing already two curb cuts. Sometimes it's not a bad idea to keep your site up in Google like this, and even to drop down like this to really get a good idea of what's going on there. So here you can see we've actually got two cuts here. We may not necessarily want to use both of these. If we can reuse them, that's good. It's makes a construction costs cheaper. Don't necessarily have to in most cases. So let's assume that I think this one might work. You'll see when we get the layout going, that we may want to just try to keep and reuse that one and then just close this one off. So when laying out a scooters, the first thing you want to consider is which building we want to use. So we have some templates, and I'm gonna grab those off to the side here real quick. So I've got a bunch of blocks here, and we've got footprints. So the coffee house is a really large one. We're not going to be using that one very often. I've done a few of them, but they use those very sparingly. The 4.0 is the one that's used most often. Now, this is going to be used in a situation where we have access from the front of the site, where you'll be coming in, entering and exiting on the front. And then the RM is used in a situation where you enter and exit from the rear of the site. And the reason for that is they want to make sure that when you leave the drive-through, you have a really quick path to exit the site. So the difference in these footprints is basically one has the drive-through flipped over to the opposite side, and that's to get you to be able to leave quicker. So here's the first one. So you can see here, when you're going through the drive-through, when you leave the drive-through, you would want to exit out here and be able to leave. But since we're not going to have a um, cut up here, Vermilion is the main street, so that's where we want to face the building for visibility and that sort of thing. We're not going to get a cut, so we don't want to use this footprint because then they would have to circle all the way back around the building and then come back here in order to leave. So in this particular case, we're probably going to want to use the RM footprint, which looks like this. I'm going to go ahead and take that and put it on my building layer. Okay. So now you can see if you're sitting in the drive-through queue, when you get ready to leave the drive-through, you'll be ready to leave directly out, because here's where we were talking about putting our curb cut. As a matter of fact, let's go ahead and draw that in here real quick. I'm going to do a quick pick and get on my draft layer and just quickly line that up. I'm going to offset 24 feet. That looks to be pretty quick. Okay, so that's where we're going to want to access the site. Now, in most cases, I have some templates set up for these things, some drive-through templates to start from that usually help us out right off the bat if they work. If they don't work, then we just have to customize and do the best we can. But I've got here. Let me just show you. I've got a bunch of these here. So this is a first corner drive-through. If you could imagine, the first corner is where the menu board is. So if you're coming out of the from the first car in line, then the menu board would be on the first corner before it turns, and starts to go around the pad. Of course, second corner is going to be, on the opposite side of the pad as it rounds the second corner, and then center is the menu board will be right at the top of the pad. And we've got a double and a full double. The difference between the double and the full double, the double only has 2 lanes at the menu board, and it has 2 menu boards, and it will taper back into 1 lane feeding into the menu boards. So the full double has actually 2 menu boards with 2 full stacking lanes that go all the way around. So they like to get the full double whenever possible in most cases, if you've got the room. If not, the others are fine. So in this case, we don't have a lot of room here. I've got a double and a full double. So let's just bring, for the RM, I'm going to just try the full double and see what it looks like. So you can see here, that's what the block looks like. So if you insert it right on the corner here, enter, and then pick a spot right there, it puts it on the building. And this actually may work out pretty well. So I'm going to select this and just center it on the site like that. That is not too bad at all. It actually looks like it lines up with the concrete up here pretty good. So up front here, we may want a little bit of green space because our property line is pretty close to that sidewalk. We do not have a lot to work with here, so I'm going to say let's just leave a foot of green space. So if we have a foot of green space, then we're going to need a 6 inches for the curb. So I'm just going to move this over 18 inches. So once we offset our curb back, we'll have a foot left of green space. And as far as north and south here, like I say, I just centered it on the property. And you do want to pay attention to where existing concrete is, which that just worked out really good in this one because when I centered it, it looks like it's landing where the existing concrete is. So that's good. Now on this side, we're probably going to want to try to get a row of parking over here and maybe put the service yard up in the corner here. If we don't really have enough room, we can always put the service yard over here on the pad. I'm going to offset this 18 inches, just like we did on the other side. And that will be our curb. And then 18 feet for a row of parking. And then 24 feet for a drive aisle. Wow, that almost lines up perfect with that. Okay, so I'm pretty sure this is where that's going to be located. So I'm going to go ahead and explode this. So now you can see we've got all separate lines and everything now. And let me just say real quick, when you're laying out parking and roadways, if you have a 24-foot road, that's basically 2-way traffic, then your parking can be 90-degree parking. And by that, I mean you can have spaces straight in like that, and then of course 9 foot like that. If you do smaller drive aisles and have one-way circulation around the site, then typically this will be maybe a 16-foot drive aisle. Then with one-way circulation, you always want to angle the parking, and we usually angle it like like this at like 30 degrees, and then that way it gives them the angle to get in, for angle parking. So two-way drive aisle, you do 90-degree parking. If it's a one-way circulation, that triggers you to go ahead and do the angled parking in there. So in this particular case, we do have two-way, so we'll go ahead and do 90-degree parking. And on the radius going into this, since we're coming off of a two-way drive, I'm just going to make that a 10-foot radius, and I'll do that on both of those. I'm just going to fill it radius 0 on this for right now, and let's see how a service yard might fit in there. I have a block for the service yard. You can just drop it in. Let's see. I'm going to match that to put it on the same layer as the building. And let's rotate that from straight on. Let's rotate that down 30 degrees for better access, or for an easier access. And I'll just push it back to about the same place where our parking is going to be. Same thing up top. So that can be our access to the service yard. I'm going to set my snap angle to that, and then we can just draw some lines off. This is kind of a weird situation right here. I think I'm just going to draw a line up like that and just do a 3-foot radius on that. And then here, we'll do a 10-foot radius on that. And then let's just start from here and draw some parking. They like to get 7 spaces if we can. So 9 feet. I wonder if we can get any over here. That's going to be pretty tight. We're not going to be able to get a sidewalk up in front of there or anything like that. So we might want to try to avoid doing that. So 9 foot. These are 9 by 18. So there's one. There's one going across here. We're going to want to make a crosswalk for our handicap spaces that would look something like that. So if we can get this to line up, that would be nice. And I think that works. Okay. So let's go with that for now. And then this will be an 8-foot walk aisle. And then we can go back to 9 foot. How many is that? So we got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So we can just fill that like that. Now we got kind of a weird situation here. Let's put a 36-inch radius there. And we'll put a 10-foot there. Let's trim that out and put 10 foot on these. And we can just get rid of that. And since this is getting small, we'll just put a 24-inch radius on that. And then 0 there. I'm going to match these like this. And that will be our crosswalk, 5 feet. Like that. And that is a pretty good block out right there, I think. It's got everything that we need. We got our service yard in there. Got the full stacking lane. Typically, we're going to want For a stacking lane, we want 14 feet for these. We want to maintain 20-foot radiuses in the drive-through. When they're doing 20-foot radius turns like that, we'll widen this out to 16 feet here and here. And then we can get back down into 14 feet through here and 14 foot here. If there's parking on a straightaway like this, we would bump that to 16 instead of 14. And then, as we said over here, since we've got two-way traffic, 24 feet, and that gives us the ability to do 90-degree parking. So this is basically where you would stop the draft. The only other thing we want to show on the draft is our monument sign. And they usually want to try to get that on the hard corner or wherever the best visibility is. So here's a nice little spot for it right there. And put that on the sign layer. And that's it. There you go. Maybe come over here and double check and make sure we've got it centered in our viewport. And we do. So at this point, this is ready to be checked and approved of before we go through the final process of either finishing up any red lines that or comments that are made and finalizing the drawing in the final process. So as far as the check goes, you know, we didn't have any setbacks or easements on this thing, and all the roads were labeled. So that we developed our layout, and we showed the service yard and the signs. And if this were to be a test fit, we would take it a little bit further and go ahead and dimension the property line and add that in the notes, the general notes, and the title block info, and we've got a test fit stamp that we put on it. And but beyond that point, it's down to the finalize the drawing process. So hope this is helpful in helping you lay these out. It is a very fluid process. They're all a little bit different, but if you just kind of follow the steps of locating your main drive first, deciding where your curb cuts are going to be so that you can figure out which building to use if you're accessing from the front, and you know, you want to use whichever footprint is going to give your car the fastest exit after they come out of the drive-through. So if we were exiting from up here, then we would want to be able to go out this way. Since we can't, we're using the RM so that it comes out this way. As far as the different templates that we have to use, it depends on the length of the site that you have and the footprint that you're using. So if we were using the 4.0, you got 3 different options. The one where the menu board is rounding the first corner is the longest one. So it could stretch way out to here. The one where it's in the center brings it in a little bit shorter, and then the one where it's on the second corner brings it down to the shortest one. And of course, the second corner with a single drive-through option is going to be the shortest. So we'll do more of these videos with some different drive-through options. If you have any suggestions on one that you'd like to see, definitely just leave that in the comments, and I'll get to that as soon as possible. One other thing you want to get in the habit of doing is when that logo is upside down right there, you can just double click it to edit it and just do a rotate. There we go. And just come in right here and 180. There you go. All right. That's the end of this video. Let me know if you have any suggestions for other ones that you'd like to see, and we'll talk about them then. Thanks.